Excuse me, I'm just finishing up a speech. For you, Mr. Spock. I rather enjoy writing. I don't get to do it very often in this job.
Perhaps you would be happier in another job.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, a TNG podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are Trekkie veterans, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on our first journey through Star Trek The Next Generation. Today we're discussing the Season 5 episode, Unification Part 2, or just Unification 2, as they chose to call it, weirdly.
Thank you.
Original air date, November 9th, 1991. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Actually, Dory, just before you start, fun fact about this episode was filmed before the first one that we just watched.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was based on when Leonard Nimoy was available.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we start off basically where we left off last episode. Spock comes out of a tunnel, and he's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing here?" to Data and Picard. And Picard's like, "That's funny. I was going to ask you the same fucking question."
Ooh.
And
And then they throw down.
Spock is... Spock says he's on a personal mission for peace. And this is like none of Starfleet's business. They can go fuck right off. But Picard calls...
I'd like to point out that the character of Spock that you're seeing here is a little bit different than what we're used to from Spock, partially because this is like almost 100 years later, and partially because they are directly tying this into what happened in the movie that came out like a month before this.
Oh, okay. So, okay, Picard then says that Spock does cowboy diplomacy. That's funny. Okay, so Picard's like, listen, also, he says unhappy news. Then Spock just looks at him and goes, Sarek, he's dead. Well, Picard, at least you didn't have to share the bad news. You were worried about having to actually tell him. Didn't have to tell him.
Oh, you guessed? Oh, thank God. That takes such a load off my shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, good for Picard, I guess. Okay. So so as it turns out, there's like Vulcan, I call them Vulcan fanboys.
Vulcaboos?
Oh, is that what it's called?
No, because anime fans are called weeaboos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Veebs.
And
Veebs. Oh, I like that. I like that, Veebs.
So the Vulcan Veebs are considered, like, there's a group who are like interested in them, and they're considered enemies of the Romulan state. So Pardek is like interested in unification. Spock is definitely on board, but there is a new member of the Senate who has passed other quote-unquote reforms and may be open to listening to them. I've got questions about Romulan politics, but we'll go over it later.
Actually, I can answer that question right now. The
They're
answer
dumb.
is it's never made clear. Yep, sorry. This is like the first world-building glimpse that we really get at Romulan politics, and it is quite literally the last time that it is ever made out to be any kind of real democracy.
Okay. Yeah, so Picard is actually pretty pissed off at Spock. And he's like, why didn't you go to the Vulcans or the Federation to to talk about this? And Spock's like, listen, this was a personal choice. Like, nobody fucking asked you to be here. And then he also name drops Captain Kirk, and I was like,
Yep.
Actually, he does. I don't think he name drops him. He just
No, but he
implies
makes a very direct reference to him.
Yeah.
I think he says Captain Kirk though, doesn't he?
No, he says
No, he's just
another
like-
captain of the Enterprise that I once knew.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine. Like, that is all but saying Kirk's name, to be fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, Spock wants to only because he tells the story of like he went, I don't remember if it was for the Kittimer conference or for a different thing, but he like went to represent in some other peace talks, and it like put other people at risk. So he's like, this time it's only me.
He's
I'm
actually
only putting my own
referencing
life at
the
risk."
film that had just come out.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's like I said, when they were writing this, they made direct references to this episode and to the film in one another on purpose in order to get people to check out the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Spock then tells Picard to like leave, and Picard has the absolute audacity to be like, well, it looks to me like you're being influenced by your emotions. And Spock looks at Picard like, say it again.
Yeah.
Say it again to my face.
Also, I feel like Picard has a habit of doing this, or sorry, people have a habit of doing this in general when they want to like disagree with a Vulcan, and it just gives off like very like, oh, you're a woman, you're so emotional vibes to me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever they're
I get
like, because Vulcans are all about logic and like suppress their emotions and stuff. Everyone always sort of needles them about being like, oh, you're sounding emotional now. And it's like,
Well, because they say like emotion is a weakness when it's
Yeah.
truly not.
it's
in
not.
all-
Listen, the Vulcans are dicks in their own way,
Yeah.
but I also feel like it's a dick move to constantly do this to Vulcans you disagree with.
While I agree
Yeah.
in universe, in terms of the way that Vulcans are usually written, they're more often than not written to be pretty arrogant about not having emotions, and so it's kind of meant to be like
Yeah.
a jab at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But maybe it's just because I was like defensive of Spock, or like I just disagree with Picard on this.
I actually
It's
disagree
like,
with him too.
when
Yeah.
when Picard was saying it felt very like pointed.
Yeah.
I think there's something important about this scene that I think we're not really looking at here, and that's the fact that both of these characters are coming in with their own biases regarding the Federation's role in all of this, and we've seen what Picard's bias
Oh, of
is, where
course.
it's very towards the Federation is the good guys, we're here to help all the time, and it's clear right off the bat that Spock is kind of jaded and like immediately shows some contempt of Starfleet, possibly in regards to what happened in the previous film, possibly just in regards to that's how he's grown over the years, and that's something that needs to be taken into account with the characters in this episode, because Pardek has a similar issue later on as we go through.
So Picard's like, yep, I'm in it to win it. I'll be here till the very end of this situation. So, okay, back on the Klingon ship, Kavada talks with Data, and Data wants access to the computer because Data wants to hack the Romulan interweb.
I'm in.
Kavada's like, don't bother. We've been trying for years. But listen, Data's got a different set of skills, and he's not afraid to use them.
Yeah.
So Data is like, listen.
He's
but
fully
Kavada's also
functional
like, oh,
and
but we have,
programmed
like,
in multiple techniques.
Oh, absolutely. But Kavada's like concerned about like, oh, Data's gonna look at our shit. No, and then Data's just like, change the fucking passwords when we're done. Oh my god. But also Picard says we can share Romulan information. Yeah, so he convinces him and to like go into the computers, whatever. So okay, okay. So now Picard and Spock are at, I think it's like the same little restaurant they got caught at last time, in which weirdly
they're talking about this shit like way out in the open.
yeah, and this guy comes
Yep.
over and puts like, I think it's an orchid
Yeah.
on the table, and he goes, Jolin True. And then some person comes over and gives them soup, and I was like, oh no, Picard, soup. That's what let you guys like get caught last time. Have the soup. So Spock then says, in the Federation, we have learned from experience to view the Romulans with distrust. We can either choose to live with that. Oh boy, what did I write?
It's a weird word that I don't think I've heard before. It's like anemone.
Enmity? Okay,
Enmity?
it looks like I wrote ENMMMTY.
Yeah.
Okay. enmity, whatever, or seek a way to change it. I choose the latter. And then Picard goes, I will be the first to cheer when the neutral zone is abolished, but I wonder if this movement is strong enough to reshape the entire Romulan political landscape. Then Picard goes, one can begin to reshape a landscape with a single flower, Captain. It's like, thanks. Cool. I mean, he's not wrong. Yeah.
Get it? It's a
So then
flower.
this kid, Detan, who I really thought was going to be killed by the end of this episode. It's like a young, idealistic youth.
Yeah.
That kid's going to die. No, he's fine. He made it out. Good for him, I guess. So he's like curious about Vulcan, and he brings this old book about Vulcan shit. And Pardek is with them. Ugh, Pardek. Ugh.
It's the
Pardek.
the book is about so they never explained this in the episode.
It's the Vulcan separation.
Yeah, so
You're right,
Vulcans and Romulans used to be one race of people, and then the Romulans split off from the Vulcans.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's something that was that was introduced in the original series. So like fans of TOS would have known it. It was a big thing in the episode that they're introduced because they see the Romulans for the first time and they're just like, Spock, what the fuck? They look like you.
So Pardek is like, hey, bro, we've told you, keep that fucking book at home.
Yeah.
But Tan really wanted to show Spock. Anyway, so they like walk away. They leave this little restaurant without eating their soup. And I'm like, that's...
Without even touching it. Like, they didn't even take like a...
Yep, that's definitely suspicious.
I actually wrote in my notes. So they walked away without eating. Either they just dined and dashed, like they didn't pay for it and they've been served, or they just like they pay for it, like they paid already and then they left, which is like equally suspicious.
So we don't... I'm not sure about this, but the Federation doesn't have money, so the Romulan Society
but the
might...
Romulans maybe would.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is Romulans might not also have money. So...
Oh, okay. Because, like, I knew the Federation
just don't
doesn't,
know.
but I wasn't sure if that applied on Romulus also.
Yeah, Romulan businesses are never alluded to. It as far as we know, like it's important to remember that Star Trek also has a slant because we are seeing things almost always from a military perspective. But in the Romulans' case, we never see anything but a military perspective aside from this episode.
Well, one way or another, they left some full soup and it looks sketchy.
Yeah.
So
actually, that soup looked... Oh, yeah. It looks sketchy, them leaving the soup. I thought you were saying the soup looked sketchy, and I'm like...
No, the soup looks fine.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
soup actually looked okay, as opposed to the other soup that did not look great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the other one just looked like
so
gruel.
Now Pardek, he's like, the children are the future. And him and the other old farts, like, need to leave their prejudice in the past. And I'm like, yeah, that's applicable for everywhere. Thanks.
So while he's right, I think that kind of idealism, like we discover later on in the episode that he's not legit about it, but that kind of idealism is something that I used to think too. It's like, oh, the younger generation is going to come in and fix things. But the thing is that the older generations tend to pass down a lot of their prejudices. Not all of them, and it like real bad prejudices tend to eventually change, but it takes time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the conclusion the episode comes to, right?
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
But also, like, the older generation has the systems in place to sort of keep the oppression going, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like, and it's going to take time to dismantle those and all that, you know.
Okay, so they've, the Pro Council, who we kind of met for like a second last episode, I think it was the guy who was like, look out for Spock. Here's the picture.
Pro Council Underbite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's agreed to meet with Spock, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then back at the Enterprise, which I completely forgot that they were on their own mission.
Yeah.
So they're still looking for the theft of the Vulcan ship. And I was like, we're still at this? Holy shit. It turns out to be relevant. But I was like, the way that they were going last episode, I was like... I thought it was just like a B plot to keep them busy, but it ends up like actually being relevant.
The B plot is the A plot. Wow.
Honestly, I enjoyed the B plot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, okay, the trail has now led Riker to the ex-wife of the dead smuggler that Riker blew up last episode.
Yes, the trail
so-
has led them to the cantina on Tatooine.
Yes.
Yes.
So this dark bar.
Which is actually just a redressed Klingon cargo bay.
Okay, this might be truly my favorite scene in the episode.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, we got another one episode character who's going to be on my list in the retrospective for this season.
These 2 episodes are full of one-shot characters who really steal the scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Zach Dorn in the previous
he was great.
episode. Yeah. It's just that whoever was writing these did a really good job with these one-shot characters.
Just with these characters. Everything else is meh. Okay, anyway, so Riker, okay, so he walks through the bar. This person comes up with a tray of drinks, and Riker picks up the drink, and they both stare at each other until the other guy's okay, fine, and just walks away. It's an intense staring contest. Riker wins.
Yeah, I'm I'm not
okay.
sure you were allowed to take that drink, Riker.
Yeah, it was kind of a smooth move, but do you pay for that? What's happening here?
Because this bar definitely takes money.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
Riker goes over to the pianist, who is the ex-wife. And this is a wild character design. It looks like somebody was sewn back together on the nose with a bunch of crazy straws sticking out.
She looks a little bit like low-budget Star Wars.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment for this entire scene, that it feels very Star Wars. At least the setting does.
I
Yes.
didn't really like this look, but this actress was so fucking good
Yes.
that I will allow it. Okay. So
Especially
Riker
since
goes over
it was
to her.
all dubbed too.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was pretty obvious that was ADR.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I did not notice that. To be fair, I have started watching the episodes on 1.25 speed.
Oh my god.
I have also learned that, my God, did these characters talk slow? Because in the 1.25 speed, they're talking at a normal rate somehow. Oh my God.
I mean, you have to keep in mind a lot of people in Star Trek are Shakespearean trained actors. So there's
Yeah.
kind of a delivery about that's very common.
Yeah, this is the first episode I've watched at that speed.
You've gotten too used to TikTok.
I love TikTok.
The Gen Z has rubbed off on you.
Oh God.
Ugh, disgusting.
Ugh.
You're a child.
Don't tell them that. They'll evict me. I'm too old. Okay, so Riker goes over to her and she goes, "A new face." Oh, by the way, they don't actually give her a name in the episode, but I did IMDb it. And I think the character's name is Emery. And
Yes.
and the
that's correct.
actress's name was Harriet C. Later. Yeah. Do you know if she did the voice?
Yeah.
She did
Yes,
the voice?
she did.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So I can
Yeah.
still be like, she was great in this. Okay, wonderful. So
Yes.
she goes, "A new face." And Riker goes, "Same one I've always had."
Yeah, Jonathan Frakes was having a lot of fun in this scene.
This was... Oh,
Clearly,
yeah,
yes.
This was real fun. So she's got forearms. She's playing... Oh, she's also got a salt addiction, which was wild. You know what I do like with Riker, though? Riker is very much an equal opportunity flirt. Because, this also felt very, genuine flirting. And
Yeah.
I was like, Riker, you little scoundrel there. You... Okay. So, Amory goes, "So who are you looking for?" And Riker goes, "Who says I'm looking for anybody?" And then she goes, "Your face, your uniform, in a place like this." Riker goes, "Okay, I'm looking for you." And she goes, "Oh, you just made my day." And then she's so many. Man, if I could have, this whole scene was the best scene of the episode. But she says a bunch of great stuff, and then she's like, says that her ex-husband, his one redeeming quality is that he always cleaned up after himself, and referring to the fact that he got blown up, which is amazing. And so then she says to Riker, "And why should I help you?" And Riker goes, "To be honest, I can't think of a good reason." And then Emery goes, "Well, you did just kill my ex-husband." That's not a bad start. So why don't you drop a few coins in the jar and I'll see what I remember. And then, okay, by the way, when Riker first goes up to her, he's like, "Can you play the blues?" And she's like, "I know all the blues." Which blues?
Okay, I need to point out there's a pun in that conversation that I did not realize was there when I was younger. When she mentions Andorian blues, and I'm just like, no.
Oh.
No, you did not just do that.
Because the
So-
Andorians have blue skin.
Yes.
But then Riker goes around and starts playing the piano with her. And he's, of course, because God forbid Riker has any other kind of taste, he's like 20th century Earth blues. I love it. It's great.
Important character design detail. She has 4 arms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I mentioned that.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I noticed
My
that the
bad.
It was
piano looks
briefly.
the
It
same
was
as
really
Earth
briefly.
pianos, and I'm just like, guy.
It's just double.
Yes.
2 levels. A double-decker piano. Yeah, that's really great. So she tells Riker that this guy named Omeg drops by. He's a quote-unquote Fet Ferengi. And he drops by like one of these days for a specific song, and he's an arms trader. So he's like, "Cool, thank you for that info." Okay, so now we're back to the A plot. Okay, I think like the design for the Romulan city we're looking at is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You're right.
Yeah, the matte
Interesting.
painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Pardek brings Spock to the Pro Council, and we meet him. We learn his name is Neral.
Neral.
And Neral, whatever the fuck. He sucks.
Yeah, he
Doesn't
does.
matter.
And he looks like the ShamWow guy.
He's also not into titles.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember what that guy looks like. Neral also attempts to do quote unquote hand gesture. It's the live long and prosper thing. It feels condescending when he's trying to do it. So we learned Pardek doesn't get invited to much because he's such like a radical, but he's being invited to something with his wife that is like, interesting.
Yeah,
What
to
has
like-
changed?
To like a state dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Which to me, that was like first red flag. Like, why mention this? And then all of a sudden he's invited to something.
Which I thought they did very well because they never pointed out in the episode. So it's up to it's up to the audience to notice that sort of discrepancy.
And I did.
Nice.
I did notice it. So then, so Neral is like, the worlds need each other, blah, blah, blah. Oh, God. I honestly zoned out for part of this. But he's open to stating that, this is what I wrote. He is open to stating that he is open to talking with Vulcans. It's a lot of the word open. Then he gets called back into Senate. The session is back, so he's like, "Okay, bye." So the second Spock steps out. The second Spock steps out, Selah walks in which
Yes,
I knew
and
she was there
just
because of
hiding behind a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew she was there because not
They
there
spoiled
in
it.
particular,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's in the opening credits. It said Denise Crosby, so I was like, oh, we're gonna see fucking Selah, but why? So she steps in, and it's supposed to be plot twist, but listen, I noticed the credits for once,
Yes.
so not so plot twisty for me. Okay, so Picard is also not convinced, and like, how did Neral get this position? Because he had to have some kind of traditional, senator support. Oh, excuse me. Spock is also not super convinced, but he's like, listen, I'm gonna play along and go to the meeting, and I'm gonna play whatever kind of like part they want me to play to like see what happens. And you sound like, but Picard says, okay, this is kind of confusing. Sorry. I'm confused with what I wrote. But it's something of like, Picard is like, Picard's like, Sarek will always be part of him, his spirit, etc. But his voice is his own. Oh yeah, because Spock's like, you sound like my dad. I'm like, okay, I don't care about any of this. I hate this whole thing.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I said it last episode. I don't, this interpersonal conflict is not interesting to me because it feels like Picard has inserted himself into this family drama.
Yeah.
Okay, so Spock says that it is possible that I have brought my argument with Sarek to you, Captain. If so, I apologize. And then Picard goes, is it so important that you win one last argument with him? And then Spock goes, no, it is not. But it is true that I will miss the arguments. They were finally all that we had. So, okay, that's like something. But yeah. Oh, this is when Picard's like, listen, but we're going to continue even this is a trap. And Spock's like, listen, we're going to do it even though it's probably a trap. So then Data, we learn, has been unsuccessful at hacking, which is, Data, you have one job. Into the Romulan server, whatever. And Spock offers to help. And Picard goes to take off his ears. So Spock tells Data that, like, Picard intrigues him. He's remarkably analytical and dispassionate for a human. I call bullshit. Like, that doesn't describe Picard.
I think it does for early Picard, the way that like he's written in the character Bible and whatnot is, and the way that he's evolving as a character has been to be more, what's the word? It's not that he's dispassionate. In this episode, he's definitely seeming to lean more towards logic than emotion, and that seems to be that seems to be his decision making process much more within the confines of the show. But that doesn't mean that he shows no emotion.
Spock says that Picard has like a Vulcan vibe, and Data's like, lol, he's been his role model to become more human. It's a cute scene. I actually like Data and Spock.
It is a cute scene. It's technically, I think what I like about it is it is in pure service to these characters, even though it is almost fan service, and that it's the original Spock meeting this show's Spock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Spock tells Data, like, oh, Vulcans would actually be pretty jelly of Data because he has, like, no
emotions by nature.
Emotions. Yeah. So Data says that Spock has abandoned what Data wants, because he's half human and has abandoned his human side for the Vulcans. So okay, then back in the bar, Worf is stationed at the bar with Amory, and I liked this a lot too. This is like my second favorite scene. So Worf requests some music from Klingon opera, Acta and Melota, and she's like, oh yeah, I know it. Might be a little bit rusty, and Worf looks psyched. So she starts singing, and then I wrote, Worf, quote unquote, sings along, ? Because he just starts screaming the words at random parts. So like, I don't really know what's happening there, but I'm enjoying it. I'll take it.
The way that I described it is Worf goes beast mode for opera.
Yeah, Klingon opera is always kind of depicted as like kind of chaotic. So he might be singing it at the right time. I don't know.
It's great though. I enjoyed it. Like Worf just looks so psyched.
Yeah.
I like the idea that Worf listens to opera.
Yeah.
It's like, that's nice. He likes music. Okay, so then the Ferengi that they are looking for, he comes in. He's very rude. He walks in with two women. Okay, this is worth a description. Okay, one woman is wearing a gold dress that has like a cutout of the stomach and some underboob. Weirdly, I mean, this is kind of a coincidence, but it actually kind of reminded me. Miley Cyrus had a song that just came out, and honestly, not a huge Miley fan, but this is a banger. It's called Flowers. And the music video, she's wearing a dress not that different from this gold dress.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying is sci-fi eventually becomes reality.
Yes. And then it ends up on Miley Cyrus.
Fair.
Yeah, both gold dresses are great. This woman looks amazing in this gold dress. And then the other lady is wearing a blue sparkly dress with hip cutouts and a boob window. And her hair is in the style of a fan.
Yeah.
Like a thwarp, like paper fan, not like a electronic plug in the wall fan. Although that would be a look.
Yeah.
So the Worf lets Riker know that the Frankie's here. This is great too. Okay. So the Frankie, he's shouting around and he's like, is there no waiter in this sorry place? And then Riker goes over and says, is there a problem? And the Frankie goes, yes, I need more napkins. And then Riker goes, use your sleeve. And then Frankie goes, what did you say? And Riker goes, use one of their sleeves. I don't care. So good. And then after Riker, like there's I think something in between, but then Riker says, he's trying to get information, this guy, but he's being an asshole. So Riker says, who would want a Vulcan ship? And then the Frankie goes, hypothetically speaking. And then Riker goes, hypothetically speaking. The Frankie goes, I never learned to speak hypothetical.
I love
so
that
stupid.
that his companions are like they're smiling and laughing, but it's clearly forced.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Okay, so then I was like, is Riker gonna flip the table? He doesn't, but he does flip the food tray. So fish goes on the Ferengi. And then Riker says, oh God, this threat is incredible. Okay. Riker goes, let me explain what will happen to you if you don't tell me about the Vulcan ship. Your rite of passage through this sector will be revoked, and more than that, I will be very unhappy. Wow, Riker. This is intense. It's not like a side we see a lot in Riker. Okay, so apparently the ship was delivered to a Beryllian freighter in the
Galorndon Core. That's actually a name that we've heard once before. It was in a Romulan episode called The Enemy.
Okay, well, this is like it's a mouthful. Anyways, this place is near the neutral zone. So Riker, he takes a sparkly cloth and then just dabs at the Ferengi's face and tucks it into his collar and leaves. Like, what an exit. Okay, so then Picard and Data zoom with the Enterprise, and Data says that they find out from Romulan subspace logs that identify transmission from the Romulan surface to a Beryllian ship near the Galorndon Core 12 hours ago. Look at me go.
Nice.
And it's not routine, even though they trade with the Romulans, but they used a Romulan intelligence prefix code. Cool. So Datan is like, he's got like tiny pyramids. He wants to learn Vulcan, whatever. I don't know. This kid pops up a lot. I don't care about him.
Well, he has
I'm happy he lived, but like he wants to learn.
He
shit.
basically has like these little dice with like Vulcan alphabet on them. So they're like toys for teaching kids how to learn Vulcan. And Spock's like, oh, your parents wanted you to learn Vulcan? And he's like, yeah, they did.
Okay, so we learn, of course, as if we didn't already know, the Proconsul Neural is a liar. Yeah, so Sela shows up with guards. She also said, because they're like in the cave or something, and then she shows up and they're surrounded. And she does say that she has respect for Data because of like the maneuvers from like last time.
Yeah. Yeah, the maneuvers from last time.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you know what's funny though? The Romulan gun looks like a price gun.
Yeah, it's not a good design.
Yeah, if I saw that, I'd be like, that's not scary. You're just going to tell me how much I cost. Oh, yeah. So Pardek turns out betrayal.
Shocking.
So, yeah, he sucks. So Sela's like, listen, I'm not opposed to reunification, but I am in favor of the Romulans taken over Vulcan, though. Mm-hmm. And that's how we reunify. Okay, we're almost done. Oh my god, this is such a packed episode of stuff. Okay, so Worf receives a coded subspace message from the Romulans saying that it's from Picard. It's obviously not, and the message is like, everything's cool, just like hang there, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. Riker is like suspicious. Okay, so then they bring in Spock, Data, and Picard to see Sela in her office. And she goes, "Excuse me, I'm just finishing up a speech. For you, Mr. Spock. I rather enjoy writing. I don't get to do it often in this job." And then Data goes, "Perhaps you would be happier in another job." So basically they've wrote a speech for Spock to make with the Pro Council to be like, hey, the Vulcan, we're gonna send like people, like a peace envoy from Romulus to Vulcan, and they're gonna like transmit the speeches all along Federation subspace, and and this like peace envoy is going to be with 3 Vulcan ships that they stole, but the Enterprise, it's what they've been looking for, they only know about the one. Mm-hmm. So Spock's like, yeah, I'm not reading this nonsense. And Sela's like, cool, you don't have to if you don't want to. We got a hologram of you. So that is creepy. Because also Spock's like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. And you can like threaten, because that's what I assume, you're going to kill me anyways, one way or another. They also don't really need to convince anyone. They just need to like distract them or confuse them long enough for the envoy to reach its destination, and then like the Romulans come out and be like, what's up, bitch, we're here to take over. Mm-hmm. So Spock and Data, they now need to figure out a diversion. Oh yes, Sela leaves, so they're like left in the room and like, we're gonna come up with a plan.
They leave them alone for some reason?
Yeah, that was a really weird choice.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. In like the office, why would you leave your like prisoners in your office?
Yeah.
Oh, so then Worf sees 3 Vulcan ships entering neutral zone, and they're like, what the fuck? That's weird. The ships are like, yes, we're escorting a peace treaty. But Geordi's like, yeah, this feels this is like doesn't no, Geordi's like, this doesn't appear to be the ship we're looking for, but like
He's
maybe
the
like it's been altered.
For.
Yeah,
sorry.
But, let's like keep looking though. So Sela then enters her office, and it's Riker and 2 guys with guns, and immediately I was like, this is your diversion plan. Like fake Riker. There's no way it's real Riker.
Yeah.
And we don't even know these other 2 guys. So it's like, cool diversion, I guess. It does work, though. It distracts them long enough that real Spock...
Which is exactly what Sela said her hologram Spock was for.
Yeah.
To just distract them long enough so they can get the upper hand.
Oh, yes. How the turntables have turntabled. So Spock puts like the phaser at Sela, and Spock pinches a guy's shoulder. He goes down. Picard punches a guy in the face.
I love that the juxtaposition there of like Data doing it the Vulcan way and Picard just decking a guy.
Yeah.
Kirk style.
So they have the phaser at Sela, and then Spock's like, haha, cowboy diplomacy, eh? Ha ha ha. And then Picard's like, good work, Data, but you didn't really get Riker's hair quite right. And I'm like, because you would know, Picard.
Well, it was very obviously wrong, because it was like flopped down in like bangs almost.
Yeah, I honestly didn't pay that much attention. I was going at 1.25 speed. I didn't really notice it that much. He wasn't on screen long enough for me to like really pay attention to Riker's hair.
Oh God.
Yeah. Listen, this episode was really hard to get through. Yeah, so then Dr. C is like, oh, comes into the bridge and she's like, oh, there's an emergency on another planet or whatever the fuck. And like, obviously this is the distraction. Like Sela said earlier that like, oh yeah, like, oh, the Enterprise will be busy while we're doing this shit. So this is obviously the thing. And then, oh, look, an incoming message from Romulus, and it's Spock. And he's like, the ships are carrying Romulan invasion forces. Ah. And then Riker then says to Dr. C, maybe like double check the planet and see what the fuck's happening because maybe this be not real. So then Sela's like, you'll never get out of this building. And Data's like, actually, I know exactly how to get out of this building. I have planned for this. So, but then he tells her, and I was like, why would you do that? But then they knock her out. So it's like, okay, that makes more sense.
Because the audience needs to know, I guess.
I mean, this whole episode, everything with Sela, she's not acting like a Romulan. She's acting like a supervillain. And there's so much like exposition that goes back and forth of them just explaining their plans. And I'm like, guys, stop. Stop telling each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, then the Romulan forces start retreating. Riker's like, oh, they're not taking the Vulcan ships with them? That's weird. And then a Romulan warbird decloaks right there. And then the warbird blows up the 3 ships containing 2,000 Romulans. And it's like, wow, they would have rather just killed all those people versus had them be prisoners.
Yeah, because they're Romulans.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to each their own. So Picard and Data and Spock go get through to the caves to leave, and then there's another group is there, and they're like, we'll continue, we'll keep going and doing shit. And then Spock is gonna stay behind and says that Spock's like, oh God, I don't think I could roll my eyes hard enough. But Spock's like, Picard, you probably knew my dad better than me. And it's like, oh my God. And then Picard's like, here, do you want the chance to touch your dad, what Sarah shared with Picard? And so I just wrote kiss because they're standing so close to each other. And then Spock just like touches Picard's sinuses and the episode ends.
Yeah, the ending is really awkward.
It's extremely abrupt.
Especially with how emotional that moment is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Spock's mind melding with Picard, right? So that he can get his father's side of things. But yeah, it's...
I don't care about this episode.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This was the only part I liked was like when they were at the bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fun. The rest of this, so much happens, but I truly don't care about like so much of it.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, even as like a Trekkie, I don't give a shit about this episode.
Yeah.
I think two-parter.
I think the episode was like fine when it came out as it's a 25th anniversary thing. It's serviceable, but looking back on it, it's not particularly interesting. Yeah.
I'm sure at the time it was far more impactful. It was like, oh, we actually, like, Gene Roddenberry had just died. Leonard Nimoy was on the show when previously, like, the show was, like, keeping its distance from the original series, and people didn't know if he'd be interesting in doing anything. The movie had just come out. Like, I get it. But yeah, like, in terms of, like, standing the test of time, not really.
No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. By the way, there's a few lines. So when Picard, or not Picard, when Spock gets the Romulan phaser, when he points it at Sela, he's like, I'm afraid I don't know too much about Romulan phaser settings. I feel like, is that a reference to something else? Did like Kirk say that?
I think so, yeah. I've heard the line before, but I couldn't tell you who said it off the top of my head.
Yeah. And yeah, Dory, the whole cowboy diplomacy thing, I don't know if they say that in the movie that had just come out, Star Trek VI.
But they do say it within the Star Trek films. Yeah,
because that's what kind of Kirk, that's his brand, is cowboy diplomacy.
Yes.
That's Kirk's whole brand. So that's kind of what they're referencing.
Okay.
To be honest, I thought Leonard Nimoy did the best job out of anyone in this whole episode in terms of acting.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like for the A plot, right? Because the other stuff was just fun.
Yes.
I did enjoy how he played Spock in this episode, because it feels like Spock, but it feels like an old Spock. Like it feels like
Yeah, it feels like an old jaded Spock.
yeah, but it still feels like Spock. It doesn't feel like a completely different character. It feels like him, just with like many bitter years on him.
Yes. Well, Dory, now you've met Spock.
Yeah.
Outside of the reboot films.
Yeah. At the moment, I guess just because like this is my one bit of being exposed to this Spock. Okay, don't hate me. I don't care. I don't care about Spock right now.
Yeah,
That's totally
that's
fair.
totally fine.
This episode is entirely meant to be like a fan service plot.
Yeah,
I think
this episode does not make you care about Spock. Like, this episode doesn't give you a reason to care about him.
no,
like,
Spock is
yeah.
important. Therefore,
Yeah,
you
it's
should care.
assuming you
I
already
do-
care.
I don't dislike him because I do think like his reasons for like being like it's he makes it pretty clear like he's doing this is all personal. He didn't want anybody to go. He's trying to set shit up, which I can respect, and I actually like I'm fine with that. So like I don't dislike him. I don't care.
Yeah, that's totally
This
fair.
episode was also just so much about like someone. Yeah, I guess this is also partially why like I don't care about this episode is because it's so focused on a character I am not that familiar with.
Yeah.
And our characters that are involved in the main plot are not doing anything interesting. Sorry, Data, but like
Yeah.
Picard I'm angry with this whole time. And Data is just like, I'm hacking. But like, God, I hope the next episode is better. But listen, I've learned keep my expectation low. So I hope the next episode is watchable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like this two-parter is tough because for someone who's like going through Star Trek for the first time, it's like you really have to it's really dependent on you knowing and caring about the original series and the movies. So it's like it's kind of like the Avengers. It's like you have homework to do before you watch it.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually, my girlfriend and I are currently going through the Marvel films because she has never seen them, and she's
thoughts
like,
and prayers.
she said like I'm interested in seeing them, but I have no idea what order to watch them in, and they don't really tell you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. So we've been watching through them, and we got through the first phase and finished the Avengers the other day. And she was like, yeah, they're fine. Some of them are less fine than others, obviously. We're not watching every single one of them, though, because some of them are just flat out dull and unwatchable. Fucking, like, we had no interest in watching Incredible Hulk. And so we get to the Avengers, and she's getting frustrated because she's like, wait, who's this guy? What the fuck's his deal? Because she doesn't know anything about comics.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one if you don't know like those characters at all.
Yeah.
Because his girlfriend did not grow up in Canada, so she doesn't have the same cultural landmarks that we do.
Right.
Because like someone who like has never seen the Avengers or whatever, and if you grew up in like North America, you probably at least have heard of the characters and like generally know who they are, like in like sort of just a casual sense.
Yep.
Yeah, so that must suck when you're like, I have no idea who this person is at all.
Yeah, it definitely created a bit of a problem, and I was like, okay, well, keep watching, and it will make sense, like in 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just a testament to how like, it's kind of a bummer to watch something with like lore that you are not a party to.
Yes.
This two-parter, it tries to be significant, but it really isn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, nothing changes. By the end of this, nothing has changed.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
They're still back to, like, an underground group, but now they even have less of a agenda because Pardek is out and the Pro Council is a liar.
Yeah.
So, like, they have even less pull than they did before, which is, I guess, why, like, Spock wants to stay behind.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, they've kind of almost, like, backtracked.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're in a worse position than they were at the beginning of this two-parter. So.
Well, I think it's because Spock sort of, he's, like, changed his goals, where it's like he was shooting for a revolution, and now he's like that
shooting for a flower.
He's like, we're not shooting for, like, he's like, this revolution is like very unlikely to happen at this stage, so I'm aiming for cultural evolution. So that he's gonna stay behind to sort of just preach volcanism, I guess.
Yeah, actually, that is kind of what he's doing.
I guess, like, I don't have a ton to say about this episode. I did have questions about Romulan politics, but as you said earlier, don't.
Well, you can ask, and we can. There might be an answer.
So what's the spectrum in terms of Vulcan politics that, like, Pardek and the Pro Council, pass reforms?
Nope.
What the fuck is a reform in this context?
You're asking too much. Nope. Okay, so here's what it is. This episode gives you the most amount of detail about the the Romulan government that you ever really see. We know that there is a Senate that makes decisions, but for all intents and purposes, everything else that we see shows that the government is authoritarian rule, and it's set by some sort of leader that's never specified. There's like the Pro Council is considered like a major leader in this episode, but in other episodes they'll name other ranks that will be like another major leader, but there doesn't seem to be like a central figure that is ever specifically referred to, so it's not technically a dictatorship in that regard. It's just an authoritarian government. But
yeah, I think the Pro Council, at least in this episode, is supposed to be like the prime minister or the president or whatever, like the leader.
But only in this episode.
Which is why, so, yeah, this is like what it seems to imply to me. Maybe this might, I'll just call it a headcanon, I guess, is like sort of, how you become a senator, I have no idea. But then the senators sort of choose the leader, right? Where it's like kind of like in the U.S. how the...
Ooh, it's like the Pope.
Yeah. Or like I was going to say in American Congress, how they choose like the Speaker of the House. How they like elect them amongst themselves. So I think that's what happens. So that it makes sense that's like Picard's like, there's no way he would become the leader of Romulus without having traditionalist support, which is like very fair, I think, to point out.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right. Is there other Romulan politics questions?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's it. I kind of just wanted to know what the fuck reform meant in their case, but
that's fair.
Oh, reforms like just like
no, like I know what I mean. I just like what is an example of reform in their politics?
I don't know.
It's
because it's not like they seem a particularly progressive bunch.
So we do get a bit more of that in newer Star Trek, specifically in the last like major movie that they did before the reboots, and we get some of it in the new Picard series that they did, but we still don't really get details is the problem.
Okay, well,
Yep.
I guess I'll never know, and I'll just wonder for
Yeah.
the rest of my life what the Romulans' reform is.
Yeah, unfortunately, with Star Trek, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of shit that just is not explained, because they're like, there's just...
It's important to know X for the confines of the episode, but not necessarily details in world building.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because other sci-fi series like for example, like The Expanse, it's part of the story and important that you know sort of more of the minutia of the politics and how things work, and it's sort of like a it's more of a confined story. Whereas Star Trek, it's just like they're just making shit up on the go, right? So it's very loosey-goosey. There's a lot of shit. It would be too much work to fully world build every single
Yes.
aspect, right? Especially for the purposes like they want to use it for. It's just like
Also, a lot of it was written in the era when world building for a universe wasn't really something that television focused on.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I need to have our I was gonna say daily, but that doesn't make sense. Our sort of weekly mention of DS9. That's what makes DS9 so unique, is that it does sort of engage more in world building, which is a thing that made it like kind of ahead of its time. Like DS9 is really like, for the era it was made, was really, yeah, like ahead of its time is the best phrase I can think of, because it's like, you know, it is episodic, but it's more serialized, like especially towards like the middle and end of the series, and it like fully engages in like this deep world building and stuff like that. So
Well, one day when I get to DS9, my expectations are going to be the highest.
oh no.
Ever.
Oh no. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm genuinely worried about, is that we're like hyping it up too much for you just because we enjoy it a lot. But there's it's a darker tone, but there's still a lot of dumb shit, and there's still a lot of Star Trek-ness to it. And also
I love dumb shit.
And also Miles O'Brien is a main character.
Oh, okay. You just lost me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, expectations have dropped considerably.
Okay, good.
I mean, I knew this, but like I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. This episode is not that interesting. It's better than the first part, I will say, because things actually happen.
Sure.
Well,
I guess I
mean,
do like this lady. I like Amory the best in this episode. We got 2 bar scenes, so I guess this episode is better.
The story progresses. In the first episode, it's like it's all just setting up. It's like Spock's on Romulus. We have to figure out what's going on, and it's like, and then the rest of the episode is like just getting ready to find Spock, and then they're like, all right, we're going to disguise ourselves as Romulans. Okay, now we have to go to the Klingon Empire to get a ship. Okay, now we're on the ship. Okay, now we're dicking around on Romulus. Okay, they finally found us. Okay, episode over.
Yep.
Like, at least in this part of the two-parter, it's like a story gets told. We're not just like preparing for something to happen. So that's what I'll say about it. I think we've kind of exhausted what we're gonna say, so let's move on to favorite moments and lines.
The bar.
Yeah.
The Riker scene and the Worf scene. Singing is great. I liked. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I like Data and Spock having a nice little chat, but that
was cool.
Yeah, that's it.
I thought they did that moment not too bad. I think it could have been like really fucking cheesy, but I thought they did it in a nice, casual way.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think it was a moment that it was also one of my favorite moments in the episode. That it was an episode that it was a moment that could have been very like cringy fan service, and it managed to not do that at all. Like it was in service to both of these characters, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, and I also like the bar scene. I and I wanted to, because Dory, you brought up that like, Riker seems like genuine in his flirting, even though this lady looks like messed up. Like her design is like real weird. That's something I always appreciated about the character of Riker and like Jonathan Frakes' performance in general, is that like even when his character is hitting on like aliens and other characters that aren't like conventionally attractive, you still believe it. Like you fully think like Riker's into this, right? Even though they look like they're sewn up leather, like So I always appreciated that.
Everybody deserves a flirt with Riker.
Oh yeah, and a hug, because he just looks like he gives good hugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, any more favorite stuff?
No, I think that's it.
All right, so the time for predictions. The next episode is called A Matter of Time. Mm-hmm. In this episode, during a... one sec. How do I word this?
They go to a new planet. No,
They do, actually.
I'm already right.
In this episode, we meet Matt Frewer, who used to star on a really terrible show called Sci Factor that was like a knockoff of the X-Files, except made in Canada.
Yeah. And he was also the neighbor in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Which is why
he played a bit part in
to me.
Watchmen.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that's been in so many things, and he has like a very recognizable face, and yet so many of the things are just completely forgettable. I mean, he's Max Headroom, so there's that.
Yeah.
That also means nothing to me.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, while the Enterprise is dealing with with an environmental disaster, they get a visit from someone from the future.
Oh boy.
Dory's just like, oh boy, time travel shit. All right, Star Trek, let's see what you got for me. And she starts rolling up her sleeves.
Okay, dealing with environmental shit and someone from the future. Okay. So this future maybe he shows up because he's like, the things you guys are doing on the planet to help with the environmental problem is actually going to cause this thing to happen, and it's going to be bad, and you guys have to like stop doing this to help because it's actually bad.
Okay.
All right.
That's your guess?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. The first thing popped into my head. That's what I'm rolling with.
Alrighty. If you want to see if Dory's correct, watch along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.